So, on behalf of LM Dental, I wish to welcome you all to this webinar and the webinar series with Dr. Pellegrino. So, my name is Peggy Sturvakka, and I work as product manager and export manager for orthodontic appliances at LM Dental. And we are very pleased to see a great interest towards this webinar and the series. We have decided to try this new channel as a new way of training to reach out to as many doctors as possible, to be able to share information about early treatment and about the possibilities to treat malocclusions with LM Dental. Some words about practicalities about the webinar. So you will be muted throughout the session, and at the end of the session you can ask questions by writing in the chat or questions section, and we will answer the questions at the end of the presentation. And we will also record this webinar, and we will share it on the LM Dental, the English webpage, where you also are able to register to these webinars. And after the webinar, you will have some questions, and we would be very pleased if you could answer to the questions, either after the webinar, or if you receive the questions also later, it's enough to answer once. So thank you again for your participation, and I will leave over to Dr. Pellegrino.
Good morning to everyone. I am very happy to be here and to share with you my experience with LM-Activator. This is a new way of share knowledge using new technologies, and the project is structured so that we have several seminars, 5 seminars, so that we will speak about the use of LM-Activator. Today is the first one, and and in this seminar we will speak about some basic concept. Perhaps some one of you could think that they could be too much theoretical, but I think that if we know the basis of the orthodontic approach, if we know the basis of the groove, we can manage the clinical problems in everyday work at the chair in a very easy way. So today we will speak about what early treatment means when we work with LM activators, or in general when we use the principle to guide the eruption of the teeth, because we will see that this opportunity can give us not only the sense to have all the teeth in a correct position, but we will see that it's a different way to manage the groove and at the end the relationship between the bones, the upper maxilla and the mandible. So in the next seminar, next month, we will see the early signs of malocclusions when they appear, what we have to look about, and how to manage this information, so to decide what to treat, when to treat, and which appliance is better to use. The next step will be about all the indication and contraindication through the analysis of clinical cases about the use of LM activators in early period. And we will see that early age means mainly between the age of 5 to 8, 9 years of age. But we will see what can happen using LM activators after this age, between 10 to 14, 15 years. And the fourth seminar will be much more clinical, because we will speak about the deep bite, and that is a malocclusion that is really very often to see. We can see deep bite every day in our work, and we will analyze how to manage the deep bite during the growth and why the LM activators can help us approaching this malocclusion. And at the end, the last one, malocclusion, is the management of the open bite. The open bite is really very, very complex because there is connected with the growth not only of the hard tissues, but is strictly connected with the function of the tongue and of the all soft tissues around the mouth. And it will be very interesting to see how LM activators can help us to manage this kind of malocclusion. But come back and start with the guidance of the occlusion using LM activators, using the concept of the eruption guidance appliance. Yes, we can normally we consider the orthodontic therapy strictly connected with the braces, with wires, with fixed therapy, and we normally compare the use of a performer appliance like LM activators with this kind of approach. But we will see that it is important to think that between these two kinds of approach, there are some biomechanical and biological differences that are really, really very important to know. Because when we speak of removable therapy, we have to think that removable therapy is a very general term. Inside the words removable orthodontic therapies, there is an incredible numbers of appliances that works in different ways. So we can work with removable plates. We can use individual activators like twin block or Sander appliance or bus appliance and so on. And they are indicated in specific period of the growth in specific, in peculiar kind of malocclusion. But when we speak about eruption guidance appliance, we speak about a kind of therapy that is able to guide the eruption of the teeth. And we will see that the eruption of teeth is something of very complex and very long and very important during the growth. And in this field, the use of LM activators is really very important. So when we speak about a fixed therapy, we need to know several concepts, several biomechanical concepts, so that we know exactly what happens when a rectangular wire is inserted in brackets, and how we need to change the single force and the couple of forces if we want to obtain a translation of a tooth or only a tipping or a rotation of a single tooth of a group of teeth. And we know that when we work in this way, we can obtain a specific biological answer from the tissues around the teeth. But when we use performance appliances, and in particular way, the LM activators that are characterized from specific morphology, we have to remember that we have a different height between the anterior and posterior part of the appliance, so that in some part of the appliance it's possible to consent the overruption of the teeth. On the contrary, in other parts of the appliance, it is not possible to consent this overruption, so that to manage, to control the path of the eruption of the teeth. And we can change the morphology so that to modify the application of this concept in several different parts of the appliance. So apparently, we have that all the appliances are really similar, but we have different morphologies that can give us different clinical results. And so this is the reason for which we can find different box of different colors, because each color is strictly connected with specific morphology of each appliance, so that we have short appliances and long appliances. And this is really important from clinical point of view, because we have short arches and long arches. We can think easily that when the second molar is present inside the arch, we need to cover, to control this position, and so we will need a longer appliance. But not only, it is possible, as we can see in this slide, have different morphologies from the vertical point of view. So we can have some appliances that are really very low in the posterior part, so to consent the overruption of the molars. Or on the contrary, we can have models that are very high in the posterior section, so that to avoid the overruption of the molars. And this is the origin. From this concept comes the words low and high that are connected with the low model of LM-Activator and the high model of the LM-Activator. And you can see on the slide that we have two different colors, yellow and blue, for the low model, because the low yellow is short, the low blue is long. And in the same way, when we analyze the high model, we will have the orange that is high short and the green that is high long, so to control the position of the second molar. And this is we will see that this concept will be very useful in the clinic, because of it is strictly connected with the evolution of the open bite. Moreover, if we have a section of LM-Activator, we can see that there are some slots in which the single tooth are obliged to be guided during the function of the mouth, so that there is no active force, but we use only forces developed from the muscles. So we can guide the erupting path of the teeth, use the occlusal proprioceptive information, and moreover, guide the mandibular position in the space, so to work with the growth of this part. And this is the reason for which we have several colors and several sides of the appliances. As you can see in this table, we have two different families of LM-Activator. The LM-Activator that are the traditional, with a larger number of sides, that is very, very useful when we work in the early age, between 5 to 8. And LM-Activators 2, that is a new design of the LM-Activator that is very useful later. So that the concept and the morphologies remain always the same. And if we come back in the clinic, comparing the use of an appliance that is able to guide the eruption of the teeth with a fixed therapy, like in the slide with the use of an utility arch, we will see that in the mechanical therapy, we will use mechanical active forces. On the contrary, we will use only eruptive forces, natural forces, if we use an immovable appliance that is able to guide, because of its morphology, the eruption of the teeth. And all this is possible because there is a large variation in the nature. Variation is a basic law of biology, and we can find this concept in the phase 2 so that we can found a very large structure, different structures of faces. And we have two different areas in which we have in the two different border the long phase and the short phase. And the long phase and short phase are characterized from different structures of the skull, different structures and morphology and dimension and the relationship between the bones in the face. And in particular way, this is very important for us between of the relationship between upper maxilla and the mandible. So between these two borders, we have that there is a statistic distribution of the faces, and we have a very large number of normal, or we can call balanced faces. On the contrary, we will have a short number of faces that becomes much more extreme in their structures. And it is very important to consider that when we analyze this concept, there is a strict analysis that needs to be done comparing the information comes from genetic and the information coming during the growth from the environmental, coming from the muscles, coming from the way of working of the face. And this concept is very important because all of us we know that the growth is a very complex concept, and normally we consider this concept so strong and so theoretical, but it is not so, because if we know what the growth means, we can find the signs of the growth every day in our work. And both skeletal and dentofacial components needs to cooperate each other during the growth, so to result in a normal phase with a good ideal occlusion. And this is a process that is a lifelong time, because it starts before the born, and it will go on trying to reach the best results. But a lot of things can happen during this long path. So we know that it's very often can happen some factors that can avoid the correct direction and can create problems to single tooth or a group of teeth or to the bones. And this is very important to analyze. It's very important to try to understand this concept, because if we know this, we can make a correct diagnosis. And a correct diagnosis is really very important to structure a correct treatment plan, so that if we know the growth, if we know all the process of the growth, we can manage this, obtaining a different approach to the orthodontic treatment. Remembering that we want to treat each child, each patient in the correct way, remembering that each problem is a specific individual problem. And we know that in general, the growth is going down, is going forward and downward along an axis that we can define as the green axis that we can see in the picture. And while in the same period in which the face is growing vertically and forward, we have that all the mandible is rotating, and there is a change in the relationship between the body of the mandible and the ramus, the vertical part of the mandible. And during this process that is defined from genetic information, we have the soft tissues balanced between the soft tissues balance between the tongue, the lips, the cheeks needs to be managed so that the position of the teeth, the morphology of the dental arch can be developed in the correct way. But it is very complicated. It is really very complicated to define before the amount of the growth and predict the exact way in which the growth will go, because we have different genetic and social and nutritional factors, and in particular way today we know that nutritional factors, the food, is really very important to manage everything. And hard food is something that is really essential to have to reach a good growth at the end, a good relationship at the end of the growth. But which is the role of the teeth? Why the teeth are so important? Because the tooth movement, the movement of the single tooth, is a key part of the facial growth. And this part of the facial growth is really very important, because the position of the teeth inside the mouth will condition the relation between maxilla and mandible. And this relation at the end is a result of a development processes in which the main events are jaw growth and balance with the eruption of the teeth, so that the occlusion is really very important at the end. And we can see that the morphology of the dental alveolar sectors and the morphology of the mandible and of the upper maxilla are really very different if we consider the structure of a long face or of a short face. And we can see that the position of the teeth is really very different in these two different situations. And we can consider two different extremes from vertical point of view, considering the deep bite and the open bite. And all the development of the maxilla and of the mandible, and in particular way of their component in the dental alveolar sectors, is really very connected with the development of the teeth, because in absence of teeth, we know that the alveolar bone fails to develop. And this process is really a very long process. It starts very early during the embryonal period, and is very important when the first deciduous teeth will appear. It changes completely the biology of this structure, and it will complete with the eruption of the third permanent molars about 17-18 years of age. And if we analyze the literature, we know from a lot of times that 8 years is really a very important border during growth. In fact, if you read the papers published by Brody in the last century, we can see in particular way these two different papers. We can see that from 6 months to 8 years of age, we have some specific characteristic of the growth that change from 8 years of age to 17 years of age. And 70 years of age, we will see that it is really very important, because it's the period in which the vertical growth phase is reducing a lot itself in the amount, in the rate. And please don't consider the concept of the growth or concept. Each of us, during the study in the dental school, made experience with this concept. And I think that the experience with the theoretical approach of the growth was not always so nice, because normally they are studied with something of theoretical. But if we apply this concept in everyday clinic, everything changes. And try to see in which way is possible to do this. In particular way, I want to share with you the research made by Dr. Schrudi in the last century, in the middle of the last century. Dr. Schrudi was studying the vertical growth of the face, and in particular way, the relationship between the increase of vertical face and the growth of the vertical size and the growth of the mandible condyle. What does this mean? That we can consider the vertical growth of the face divided in 4 sectors. The first one is the vertical growth in the nasion area. The second one is the vertical growth in the bispinal plates, in the upper area, in the basal area of the maxilla. And the third one is the vertical growth inside the dental alveolar sector of upper maxilla. The last one is the vertical dental alveolar growth in the mandible. At this point, the amount of these 4 sectors needs to be balanced with the condyle growth, the amount of the condyle growth that you can see on the slide, like in the yellow area signed with the letter A. But what means this amount? It is strictly connected with the vertical growth of the ramus and with the relationship between the ramus and the body of the mandible. These have a very important consequence inside the clinic, because when we have that there is a reduced increase in the vertical dimension in the anterior sector, and compared with the condyle growth, we have that the mandible will have an anti-rotation, like the blue arrow is designed, so that the vertical dimension of the mouth, the amount of the distance between maxilla, upper maxilla, and mandible will reduce itself, and the face will grow up like a short face, like a deep bite face. On the contrary, we will have that when we have an very important increase in the anterior vertical part compared with the growth of the condyle, we will have a post-rotation of the mandible. And for all the doctors that work in the orthodontic field, they know that the post-rotation of the mandible is really something that is very complicated to manage. And so that we wanted to obtain a balance, because a balance between anterior, posterior, vertical growth means a normal phase, means a good relationship between the teeth in the occlusion. And when, on the contrary, we have a reduced phase, an anti-rotation of the mandible will happen that we will go in the direction of a deep bite. And this is very important for TMJ too, because when we have that a deep bite is developing, we will have that the vertical path of the condyle is the path of the condyle is so vertical that the movement of the mandible, the direction of the growth and the direction of the working way of the muscles of the face will be conditioned from this relationship. And at the end, this relationship will be strictly connected with the morphology of the face. so that the morphology of the face can be divided in different parts, like we can see in this image, in which we have four rectangles, four boxes that are have a strict connection between them, and that this relationship is a characteristic of a short face of a brachyfacial type or an hyperdivergent structure. On the contrary, when we have a post-rotation of the mandible, and we have that this post-rotation of the mandible is connected with the overruption of the molars in the posterior sector, we can see in the red color in this part the eruption of the teeth. We will have that this tendency of growth is going toward a dental or skeletal open bite. And this means that the morphology of the TMJ will be again different. And the path of the morphology of the path that the condyle, the mandible condyle will do during the movement of the mouth will be completely different compared with the case that we saw some slides before. And this event is connected with the development of another kind of structure in the face. And at this point, we can see that the four boxes have a relationship between each other that is completely different. And this will create an increase in the vertical dimension, an increase that is very difficult to manage. And we can define this direction of the growth long phase or hyperdivergent structure or dolichofacial structure. But you can say, because why these concepts connected with the face are so important for a treatment with an orthodontic appliance? Why? Which is the connection between the phases, between these structures and an appliance, an orthodontic device that is able to guide the path of the eruption of the teeth. We can connect all these concepts if we analyze what Professor Petrovic was able to show in the last century. In his research, he was able to say to us that, yes, it is really very important, the endocrine system for mandibular growth. And it is very important to remember all the information coming from the genetic structure. But in this system, the occlusal matrix is so important as the functional matrix. The relationship in which the teeth will touch each other, and in particular way will touch each other during growth, can condition the growth of the whole system. So we have to work with a system that is able to give back several feedbacks to the growth, several information to the system to modify the direction of the growth. But at the end of this very fast information, we can arrive to practical conclusion. Why this appliance, in which way this appliance can help us? We can see that it's possible, like the mouth of Julia, change anterior and lateral crossbite during the growth, working night time, and to arrive to a very nice occlusion with no fixed therapy, with no cooperation during the day. Or in other situations, like Scanio, in which we have that the starting point is very important divide to change in 6 months, working only during the night, using the appliance only during the night, because of we use the power of the eruption of the teeth change completely the relationship between the teeth inside the single arch and between the arches. And or cases like this one, in which we can obtain that the occlusion that is developing can change the morphology of the relationship, working again only during the night with LM activators in a reasonable time. And so after this first seminar, we, in the next appointment, the 10th of March, we will analyze the early signs of development of malocclusions in primary dentition and in early mixed dentition. When, why, and which one appliance we can treat all this. Thank you for following us. I'm very happy to have used this time with you. And if you have questions, please, I am here. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pellegrino, for your presentation. And thank you also to the audience. So as Pellegrino said, you're able to ask questions now. You can either raise your hand. There is like you can ask questions also to the chat section. Or then if you raise your hand, we can unmute you. So far, there are no questions on the line. Unfortunately, we have had a couple of participants who had some problems in the audio, but I think that most of the participants have been able to hear you. So the problem was not here in the webinar side.
Okay.
So there are some thank you and greetings from Greece here on the line, at least from Cosmas Christopoulos. Thank you very much, Cosmas, for joining.
Thank you. And if there is no question, I will be online for the next appointment.
Yes, then I think we will see you. Hope that you can join next time on the 10th of March, the same time. And you can register. Hopefully you will register beforehand. Please also remember to watch the recordings on the website afterwards if you wish to remind yourself of the content. We thank you all for participating and hope to see you online again next time. Thank you very much.